Some of these don't feel like stories. They feel like warnings. Good evening, and welcome back to After Hours Transmissions. Tonight is a collection of 10 alleged cryptid encounters, the kind people swear happened, even when nobody believes them. Get comfortable, keep the lights low, and if you're listening alone, don't look too hard into the corners of the room. I live near farmland, the kind with hedgerows so thick you can't see 10 feet into them. One winter evening, I took my dog out late. Frost on the grass, no wind. The entire place felt muted, like the world was holding its breath. We reached a gate that separates the footpath from a field. My dog stopped dead and stared, not growling, not whining, just locked in. I followed his gaze and saw a deer at the far end of the field. At first I felt stupid for being uneasy. It was just a deer. I'd seen hundreds. But then it stood up. Not like a deer stands up. It rose slowly, like it was unfolding. Its back legs straightened too far. The hips moved like hinges that weren't meant for it, and the head stayed perfectly still as the body lifted beneath it. Then it rose fully onto its rear legs. I'd never known a deer to do that. It stared directly at us. My dog began backing up, a strange whimper slipping out of his throat, never taking his eyes off it. I did the same. The deer took one step forward, and I swear to you the hoof didn't land like a hoof. It landed like a heavy foot. I didn't wait. I turned and walked fast, dragging my dog with me. Behind us, I heard a strange noise. Not wind, not hooves, not anything I could place. Kind of like a woman's scream. The sound followed us as it carried across the field. When I reached the gate, I yanked it open and fell through, dragging my dog after me. The metal rang out sharp in the cold air. I turned without meaning to. The field was empty. No deer, no movement, no tracks in the frost where it had been standing. Just the hedgerow, the dark field, and the feeling that whatever I'd seen hadn't left. It had only stepped back. I don't take that path anymore, and my dog still won't go near that gate. He plants his feet, stares into the hedges, and starts to whimper. When I was 16, my friends and I used to sit under a bridge by the river at night. It was quiet, out of the way, the kind of place teenagers go when they want to feel older than they are. One night, while we were talking, we heard whistling, a single clean note, repeated, too even to be random. It came from upstream where the river bends and disappears behind reeds. One of my friends laughed and shouted something stupid. The whistling stopped. Then it started again, closer, same note, same spacing, adjusted like it was correcting distance. We went quiet. Even the river felt louder. I shone my torch along the bank. Mud, weeds, nothing else. Then we heard it again, right behind us under the bridge. But this time it wasn't a note. It was breath forced through teeth, a whistle shaped by a mouth. We ran, slipped in mud, nearly went into the water, hearts pounding so hard it hurt. And the whole time, there were no footsteps behind us, just whistling, keeping rhythm, matching our pace. When we finally reached the road, it stopped. The silence that followed felt heavier than the sound. I've never been back at night, and I don't whistle anymore, because every time I try, it feels like I'm answering something. I was delivering parcels on a rural route, the kind of roads where the trees knot together overhead and your headlights feel too weak. I pulled into a farmhouse drive just after sunset. As soon as I stepped out, I heard movement in the hedge to my left. Heavy movement, slow. I called out, thinking it was a dog. Nothing answered. Then the hedge bulged outward like something pressed from the inside. Branches bent, leaves shook, and behind them, I saw a shape tall enough that the hedge didn't hide its shoulders. The worst part wasn't the size, it was the stillness afterward, like it had realized I'd noticed it, and stopped. I set the parcel down by the gate and got back into the van without shutting the door properly. As I pulled away, my side mirror caught it. Not fully, just a pale face between leaves, too close, and eyes that didn't reflect light like animal eyes do. They looked flat, human. I reported it as a large animal, but to this day, I still have no idea what it was. I was driving home late along a single-track road near moorland. No music, just rain and tires. My headlights picked up a shape ahead, crossing the road. Big, broad, too upright to be a deer. It reached the middle of the lane and stopped. I couldn't see a face, but I saw its head tilt slightly, like it was listening to the engine. Then it stepped off the road and disappeared into the grass. I sat there a moment, frozen, then told myself to go. As I rolled forward, it stepped back out again, from the other side, like it had looped around me without making a sound. That's when I realized there had been no footsteps, no crunch, no squelch, nothing. It crossed slowly, deliberately. I hit the accelerator. When I checked my dash cam the next day, the footage cut out for 12 seconds at the exact time I'd seen it. Just a gap. Like the camera had somehow deleted the footage. My cousin and I were camping in a small clearing deep in woodland. No campsite, no facilities, just 2 tents, a cold fire pit, and trees packed so tightly together the stars barely showed through. That night was wrong from the start. No wind, no insects, no owls. The kind of silence where you become aware of your own breathing. We were lying in our tents, talking quietly, when I heard someone say my name. Not loudly, not close. Spoken in the tone someone uses when they're checking if you're awake. I thought my cousin was messing with me. I asked what he wanted. He didn't answer. Then I heard my name again. From the woods, I sat up. My stomach had already gone tight. I called out my cousin's name this time. Immediately, his voice answered from outside the tent. "Yeah, I'm here." But he was lying less than 2 meters from me. I could hear him breathing. Before either of us could speak again, something else spoke from the tree line. My voice. Same pitch, same lazy drawl. "Yeah, I'm here." My cousin whispered my name. I could hear the fear in it now, the real kind. The kind that doesn't sound dramatic, it sounds small. Then his voice came from the same place. "Come here." Neither of us moved. Something began to move at the edge of the clearing. We couldn't see it, but we could hear it displacing things. Leaves settling, small branches flexing. Not footsteps, like weight being transferred without lifting. Then it said my name again. This time, it was my mother's voice. Not scared, not angry, annoyed. The exact tone she used when I ignored her as a kid. "Don't make me come in there." My cousin started crying without meaning to. Just quiet, broken sounds he couldn't stop. I had my hand over my mouth because I was scared even breathing would teach it something. The movement circled, slow, unhurried, like it already knew where we were. It never came into the clearing. It never needed to. Sometime near morning, exhaustion pulled us under. When we woke, the woods were normal again. Birds, wind, distance. But around the clearing, in the soft earth and pine needles, were places where something heavy had rested. Not prints, just wide, pressed hollows, all the way around us. We packed up in silence and left. To this day, we have never camped again. The lake near my town isn't special. No legends, no deep water myths. It's the kind of place families feed ducks and teenagers drink cheap cider. We used to hang out on the old wooden jetty at night because it felt grown up. That's it. No bravado. No dares. Just somewhere quiet. One summer evening, my friend stood at the end of the jetty with his feet in the water, just cooling off, skipping stones, talking about nothing. Mid-sentence, he went quiet. I thought he'd dropped his phone. Then he said, "Something touched me." Not shouted, not joking, just confused. We all laughed at first, because that's what you do. He frowned and lifted his foot out of the water, checking it. Then he froze. He wasn't looking at his foot. He was looking past it, at the edge of the jetty. I followed his gaze. At first, I saw nothing. Then the water shifted in a way that didn't match the ripples. Something pale was just under the surface, not floating, waiting. It rose slowly, like whatever it was didn't want to break the water. A shape formed, then fingers. A hand came up and rested on the wet wood. It didn't grab, it didn't splash. It placed itself there. The skin was so pale it almost blended with the moonlight. The fingers were too long, the nails dark, like they were permanently bruised. Nobody screamed, not at first. We were all trying to make it fit into something normal. A trick of the light, a glove, a branch. Then the fingers flexed, individually, testing the surface. My friend stumbled back so fast he fell. That's when someone finally shouted. We scattered down the jetty, slipping, tripping over each other. I looked back once. The hand was still there, holding the edge, like the rest of it was just below, deciding whether it needed to come up. We didn't go near the water again. The next morning, there were wet streaks down the side of the jetty, long, vertical, like something had pulled itself up out of the water. I used to walk home across fields instead of taking the road. It added 10 minutes, but it was quieter. And after late shifts, I preferred not dealing with traffic. There's a narrow footpath that cuts between two long hedgerows before dropping into a small stand of trees. You can't see the exit when you step into it, just a straight dark corridor of dirt and roots. One evening, right as the light was draining out of the sky, I saw someone ahead of me. They were standing partly behind a tree at the edge of the path. I assumed it was another walker, maybe someone letting their dog go ahead. I called out just a quick, "All right?" to let them know I was there. They didn't respond. As I got closer, something about their posture started to bother me. They weren't standing in a relaxed way. Their shoulders were raised, like they were cold. Their head was tilted forward, not quite looking at the ground, not quite looking at me. When they stepped fully into view, my brain stalled, because their legs were wrong. Too many bends, too long between the joints, the lower part angled back instead of forward. Not broken looking, just not human. The smell reached me next. Wet, strong, like animals after rain. They tilted their head to the side, slowly, in a way that made my throat tighten. Then they made a sound that might have been breath, might have been amusement. I didn't run. I backed up. They matched me, not stepping forward, not retreating, keeping the same distance, staying just where the shadows swallowed detail. I turned and climbed the nearest fence without thinking. Tore my jeans, skinned my hand. Didn't feel any of it. When I looked back from the field, the path was empty. The next morning, I went back in daylight. There were deep marks in the dirt where it had been standing. Not footprints, pressures, like something had rested weight there without lifting its feet. I drive a lot for work, and there's one stretch of road I take when I want to avoid traffic. No houses, no lights, just trees and drainage ditches. One night, halfway down it, I saw someone standing off to the left, just beyond the verge. They were facing the road, arms raised slightly, like they were trying to be seen. I slowed, not to stop, just enough to understand what I was looking at. That's when I realized they were too far back. You'd have to climb down into the ditch and up the other side to stand where they were. They stepped forward into my headlights. Their clothes looked normal. Dark jacket, light top. Their face didn't. They were smiling, but it wasn't directed at anything. It was stretched and fixed, like a photograph, and their eyes didn't change. No squint, no blink, no reaction to the light. I didn't stop. As I passed, I checked my mirror. They didn't turn their body, just their head, smoothly, following the car. When I got home, the drive had taken nearly half an hour longer than it ever has. Same route, same speed. No memory of slowing or pulling over, just more time than existed. I never dared to travel that same way again. I work seasonal jobs, and 2 winters ago, I took a position at a national park lodge that stays open year-round for hikers and wildlife researchers. It's remote enough that once the snow comes in, you don't really get visitors unless they're experienced. One afternoon near the end of my shift, I was walking a maintenance trail that runs just beyond the tree line behind the main lodge. It had snowed the night before, fresh enough that every animal track stood out clean. I was actually enjoying it. No wind, no voices, just that deep winter quiet. That's when I saw the prints. They weren't on the trail at first. They came out of the trees to my left and crossed it at an angle, disappearing back into the woods. They were huge, longer than my boot by a lot, deep enough that snow had collapsed inward around the edges, and they were spaced far apart. Whatever made them had a long stride. I crouched down, thinking maybe a bear had stood up and walked for a bit. But these weren't bear prints. The front was rounded, but there were toe impressions, not claws, toes, 5 of them. I followed them without really deciding to. Maybe 20 meters into the trees, I smelled something. Not rot, not animal waste, wet, musky, like damp air and cold earth. Then I heard a sound, not a growl, a low, breathing exhale, slow and heavy, from somewhere ahead of me. I stopped. The forest in front of me was thicker, branches webbed together, visibility dropping to a few meters. I was about to turn back when something shifted behind a stand of firs. At first, I thought it was 2 trees moving against each other. Then one of them bent. Something tall straightened. It stepped forward just enough for me to see a shape separate from the forest. Broad shoulders, long arms hanging too low. Dark hair matted with snow along one side. I couldn't see its face clearly, but I could see its chest expanding as it breathed, and I could tell instantly that it was not a bear. It wasn't shaped like any animal I knew. We stood there for what felt like too long. Neither of us moved. Then the smell got stronger, and the thing shifted its weight. Snow compressed, branches creaked. That was enough. I backed up slowly, never turning my back. Every step felt wrong, like I was breaking some rule I didn't understand. When I reached the trail, I turned and ran back to the lodge. I reported it as a possible large primate sighting. That was the safest wording I could manage. The next day, a ranger went out with me. We found the tracks. We found where something heavy had stood. We did not find where it went. The print simply stopped in an open patch of snow. No turn, no drag, no leap marks, just an empty white clearing. I finished the season early. I don't work winter parks anymore, and I don't follow tracks into trees. A few years ago, I worked briefly as bar staff on a cruise ship. Not one of the luxury ones. Mid-range, families, couples, older people, floating city. One thing nobody really tells you before you work at sea is how dark the ocean is at night. Not no lights dark, empty dark. There's nothing for your eyes to grab onto. No depth, no distance. Just a black surface swallowing everything beyond the ship's lights. After late shifts, I used to go out on the aft deck to cool off. Staff weren't really supposed to, but no one enforced it. There were cameras, but nobody watching them live. One night, well past midnight, I went out alone. The ship was moving steadily. You could feel it through the metal under your feet. The wake glowed faintly from the churned foam, then vanished into blackness. I leaned on the rail and just watched the water slide past. That's when I noticed movement that didn't belong to the waves. At first, I thought it was debris, a log, a drifting container, something catching light at the wrong angle. Then it kept pace with the ship, not bobbing, not falling behind, moving with it. About 20 or 30 feet out, just beyond the strongest lights, something pale rolled near the surface. Long, smooth. It broke the water slightly, then sank again, like a body turning over. I told myself it was a dolphin, or a shark, something normal that my brain was misshaping because of the dark. Then it came closer, not toward the ship, up alongside it. The water there was calmer, pulled by the hull, and in that smoother surface, I saw it more clearly. There was a spine, not a fin, a line of raised shapes running down something that was neither fish nor human. Then something else surfaced, an arm. There is no better word for it. An arm rose slowly from the water, bent at a joint, and rested briefly on the surface tension like it was testing air. The skin was pale, almost translucent in the ship's light, and too thin over the structure beneath it. The hand opened, long fingers, webbing pulled tight between them, nails dark at the tips. I stepped back from the rail without meaning to. The thing rolled again, and a head came up, not fully, just enough. There was hair, long, dark, spread out in the water like ink, and beneath it, a shape that tried to be a face. The eyes were too far forward, the mouth was too wide, and when it opened, it didn't open like something meant to breathe air. It flexed sideways, like a tear forming in soft material. No sound came from it, but I felt pressure in my ears like descending too fast in a plane. The thing sank slightly, then rose again, closer, matching the ship, matching me. Then it did something that still turns my stomach. It angled its head and looked up, not at the ship, at me. There was no curiosity in it, no hunger, no expression I could place, just attention, pure, directed attention. I stumbled back from the rail and hit the bulkhead behind me. The metal rang out loud in the quiet deck. The water beside the ship erupted, not splashing, parting. Something powerful moved just under the surface, long enough to show a second shape behind the first. Then both were gone, not diving, dropping, like the ocean had opened and closed. I stayed inside the rest of the night. I didn't tell anyone until the end of my contract, when I mentioned it to an older crewman while we were packing. He didn't laugh. He just looked at me for a long moment and said, "You saw one of the followers." I asked him what that meant. He shook his head and told me not to lean over the rails at night. Then he said something I still think about. They don't come up to look at the ship. They come up to see who's looking back. That's where tonight's transmissions end. 10 accounts, 10 encounters, and not one that comes with answers. If you've experienced something you still can't explain, you can submit it anonymously. Details matter: location, time, what your body felt before your mind caught up. Because whatever people are seeing out there isn't staying in the woods. AfterHoursTransmissions will return. Until then, keep your lights low, your doors locked, and don't assume you're ever really alone. Good night.